Welcome to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast, brought to you by Phoenix Boats. Now, here are your hosts, Alabama Bass Trail Program Director, Kay Donaldson.
Welcome into the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. I'm Kay Donaldson, the director of the Alabama Bass Trail and the host for this week's podcast. And I want to say before we get started, I do want to thank you for your patience. I know we've been off the air the last couple of weeks. One, because of the holiday, hard to get people to record on the holiday. And if it's like it is with me, everyone's working so hard to prepare to be off that extra day. They just don't have time to sit down and really put their thoughts toward things. And I mean, last week was kind of a crazy week in our industry. I'm not even going to lie. And I think I needed to just posture myself in the point of just kind of listening and taking in everything that was going on before I really formed an opinion. Not that my opinion matters. I don't expect for my opinion to matter. But I did want to sit back and kind of think about some things. As it relates to the Alabama Bass Trail, again, I have zero to do with what goes on in professional bass fishing. But, you know, a lot of from time to time, we take some of the things and try to introduce those on a more amateur level, like the Alabama Bass Trail, like live coverage for one. Those are that's one of the things that we adopted from the Elite Series from BPT. And you know, I think we actually started it before NPFL was the thing, but you know, we do look at those other organizations. I think if you're looking from a standpoint of a fan perspective or whatever, you have to look at what those big organizations are doing and how you can adopt that in your organization. Some are good, some are not good. And I've been very vocal about that. Things that I think that everyone does that's good, and some of the things that I think are not so good. So I do want to say I appreciate your patience. A lot of the not being on air has strictly been about my move into a new home, to a new city, and then just all the things that go along with that, and having contractors in for the last several weeks, and on and on and on. So a lot has gone on here at Casa Donaldson, and we are trying our best to get everything done and put to bed so that we can just concentrate on Alabama Bass Trail. So I do appreciate all of you for your patience. I do know that we have been kind of off the airwaves for the last couple of weeks. But one thing that I was preparing for in last week and not being on the air was I was preparing for Angela to be here with me for the entire week as we just kind of did an Alabama Bass Trail boot camp. And working with her is so amazing. You guys, when you meet her at the championship, you're going to love her, and to get to know her throughout the Alabama Bass Trail season next year, I think you're just going to really enjoy what she brings to the table. I hope you're already seeing the differences in our social media and in our communications that she's already implemented. Such an outstanding young woman, and then just so talented and so brilliant, and so much that she brings to the table. So spent a great week with her here in Coleman, Alabama at the new Casa Donaldson, and got to spend a lot of time with her. She got to spend some time with old Riggs, and got to play some Frisbee with him as we take kind of some breaks during the day and get out and enjoy the beautiful weather here in the great state of Alabama, and just kind of take some fresh air and enjoy that. So but while we were kind of all camped in and doing an Alabama Bass Trail boot camp, I mean, the industry went crazy. We've been hearing forward-facing sonar. It has been the talk of the last, I don't know, 6 months, year, 2 years, whatever it's been. But it kind of took front stage and center this week as several of the organizations came out with their 2025 plan for how they are going to deal with forward-facing sonar and graphs and screens and all the things. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Actually, we're going to talk about it a lot. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk to BPT Pro Jesse Wiggins. He's a former Bassmaster Elite Series Pro, former Alabama Bass Trail, I guess you could say pro, because that's where he went right after the Alabama Bass Trail. So we're going to talk to him. If you haven't seen a video that he created, it was quite funny, but it was, I I think it hit the nail on the head, and I'm glad that he took that posture with it. So we're going to talk to him in just a little bit. I'm going to go through some of the things that I saw on social, some of the decisions that were made, and kind of break those down for you before we get Jesse on here. But I do think his opinion, having fished on the amateur side and being on the pro side, kind of during this evolution of forward facing sonar happened. So I am going to have him on. I'm looking forward to having him on the Alabama Bass Trail podcast. But I mean, I honestly, like, the race to ban or limit forward facing sonar has kind of been in the forefront of what's been on social media for the past several months. I do want to talk about in MLF to the point that they do have amateur organizations within their organization and how they are looking at forward facing sonar. I have not talked with anyone inside that organization. I do not have any quotes from them. I'm going strictly off of what I have seen on social, and then also reading the statements from MPFL and Bass and MLF. So this is strictly Alabama Bass Trail. My opinion. John, Daniel, myself have had several talks about this, as well as I've had lots of talks with our anglers. My phone has really rang off the hook with the decisions being made by some of the upper level tournament trails and things like that. So that being said, we're going to dive right on in. We're not even going to take a break. We're just going to go right on in. So MPFL, they came out first. I think it was the first of last week. Actually, I think it was on Labor Day. I think I remember seeing Luke going, thought I was going to get a restful day, but nope, we got some forward facing sonar to talk about. So on Labor Day, they came out with a full ban on forward facing sonar for the 2025 season. They put their statement out first, and honestly, you know, a lot of people wonder why they were the first to take the bull by the horns. They're probably the smaller organization of the three when you consider BASS, MLF, and MPFL. You know, they came out of the gate first, and you know, and I've tried keeping up with the comments on social media. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't like just made my whole life about it. But looking at their current anglers' comments, I feel like they were kind of 50-50. 50% was okay with it and 50% weren't. You know, what did they accomplish by being first out of the gate? They got a lot of people talking about them that maybe weren't talking about them before. They did it immediately after an event. So I feel bad for the winner of that event. He didn't get a whole lot of time to celebrate his event before the talk was about forward facing sonar, other than his win at their last event. So I feel sorry for him on that. But I do feel like that I will not say that they did it so that they would be relevant in the industry, because I think that is a shot at them that is not. I've heard some other people say that they just wanted to be relevant. They wanted to get out there first and make themselves relevant. I don't think that's the case. They've been around for several years now, so I think they're relevant in the professional fishing realm. But I do think they got a lot more people talking about them. That being said, you know, I'm sure that's what Ken Duke, their social media or communications person that they just hired, I'm sure that's exactly what he was hoping, is to get a lot of people out there talking about it. And, you know, and they also had a lot of guys, big names in other organizations say, hey, if the schedule fits and I can get in, I'll come. I did see one of their current anglers make a post that said, doesn't really agree with it and feels like there's something else at play there. And I probably don't disagree with him. I think who is coming to play and who they're bringing with them might be something that is being looked at by this organization. I'm not going to lie. When you look at live streams, when you look at tuning in on the weekends to the TV shows, all of us have to look at that. If you are an organization that has sponsors, you must look at those numbers. You have to decide what is best for your anglers, what is best for your viewers, what is best for your partners. All of that has to come into this conversation. And I'm sure if they have some big names that say, hey, I'm coming, if you'll let me in, I'm coming, and I'm going to bring some big names with me, whether that be partners, or whether that be other anglers, whether that be their social media behind it. they have to look at that. And I do feel like some of that was probably in play with this decision. Um, is it the best for the organization? I don't know. It's not my organization. But I would think that if 50% of your current guys or 75% of your current guys didn't have a problem with forward facing sonar, and you come out with a decision like this so that you can get other big names. And these guys bought into you when you didn't have an organization, and they bought into you and you didn't listen to them. That may be something to take a look at. I'm not saying that every organization and that any organization should necessarily cower to what one group says. You have to do what's best for the organization as a whole. But I have a feeling that some of those conversations were had. And if they are able to bring some big names to their organization and it works out for them, and they're able to keep the guys that they currently have and fill their roster with new names, I think that's great. And you can certainly call it a win for them. Don't know how many anglers they had this year, probably around that 110, 113 realm. I think they can take 125 to 130. So if they're able to fill their roster and not lose any of the guys that signed on the first 3 years, and what I consider took a chance on this organization, then good for them. They fill their field and they bring some big names over, and whatever comes with that comes with that. So, and I say that in a good way, but also in a bad way. Um, I think the names and the followers and the fans and all of that is great. But what else comes with that? So you got to look at that both ways. I can tell you from an Alabama Bass Trail perspective, having a full field is fantastic. And it's something that we taunt and something that we love to talk about. But what comes with that is logistical issues too. And you go to lakes that aren't prepared for 225 boats, but you have to go to 5 lakes in the South Division. You got to go to 5 lakes in the North Division that can hold that amount of people. You've got to also deal with the number of questions, the number of problems, the number of things that can come up. The number of ifs, ands, and buts that you're going to have to answer. And when we have 30 to 40% new teams, there's a lot of questions for new teams. They've not fished the Alabama Bass Trail before. So what comes with that, there are downsides to that. There's downsides from the angler's perspective. Would you rather fish a tournament with 100 boats as opposed to 225 boats? 90% of the time, the guys are going to say, I want to fish a tournament with 100 boats. But hey, I really like the payout of this tournament. So there's good and bad about all of it. So I just want to say that, props to the NPFL for feeling confident enough to come out with their decision at first. And then, we'll see how it works for them through the 2025 season and forward. I know the first guys that signed up a 3-year contract. I don't know what current contracts are, if they're allowed to sign up for single years or what. Be interested to see. Also be interested to see how they navigate their schedule after Bass has come out with theirs and MLF comes out with theirs, between the Toyota Series, the Invitationals, and the BPT. So be interested to see their schedule as it unfolds with no forward-facing sonar. All right. See, let's go on down to Bass. Bass came out a few days later. They're limiting the number of transducers, I think, to 1 transducer and 55 inches on your screen. So obviously they've polled their anglers. I want to say they've polled their anglers. I know that they have a committee, a technology committee. Hopefully there are anglers on that committee. But they reviewed the comments and questions and all that from their anglers. And I've been looking at several of the comments on social media after they made their decision. And I do feel like a number of the anglers wanted something done. I'm not sure this is exactly what they wanted done. I know there was a real push to have like 4 and 4 tournaments or 5 tournaments and 4 tournaments, some using forward facing, some not. I know there was some talk about limiting the transducers and the screen sizes and all of that. And honestly, you've got anglers who are well established in the fishing community that have large partnerships that can afford to go out and put all of these transducers and all of these screens on their boat. And then you have the young guns like the Wesley Gores that necessarily didn't have all of that funding to go in and put 17 screens on their boat. So I get where Bass is coming from limiting the amount that the anglers can use and all that. I understand that. I don't know if that was the reaction that the anglers were wanting. I don't really know. I did read Chase Anderson's statements. I believe that they do want what's best for the industry. I think they want what's best for their anglers, their partners. I mean, let's face it, they have Garmin, Humminbird, Lowrance. They have all of those in play. So they are trying to find a even balance for their anglers and their partners and their audience. I don't think you can go to a live that's being shown on Facebook and not see negative comments about forward-facing sonar. When it comes to professional bass fishing, they are paying attention to that. Are their viewers off? They have to pay attention to that. Their partners are requiring them to reach certain thresholds on those numbers. And if they're not, and if 90% of the viewership is against something, they have to take a look at that. Maybe this is a happy medium for the anglers. Personally, I've not talked to any of them. Everyone on this podcast knows Gerald Swindle is a great friend of mine. I have not talked to him since they made their announcement. I do not know what his feeling is about it. And if I did, I mean, he's going to tell you. He's got a lot larger platform than I do on social media, or that the Alabama Bass Trail does on social media. He'll give you his opinions there. But, I do think that Bass came out with their announcement following MPFL as a reaction to that, because I do know a large number of their anglers wanted it banned. And so I think their reaction came out a little premature than what they wanted to put it out. But I think they did, they did need to get that statement out there, and it looks like they did. I guess the thing that probably causes me more, just, I guess, unbelief is the schedule announcement. I thought the schedule was a good schedule. I have nothing against the schedule. I knew they weren't going to come to Alabama this year just simply because they were here twice last year. So you usually don't get a lot of Elite Series events back to back to back years. Normally they don't sign multi-year deals unless it's somewhere they haven't been in a really long time. So I didn't expect a tournament in Alabama this year. So I thought the schedule was really good. Loved the fact that it came out early September and not late October. But the debacle with the information rule. There are people who are going to agree with our information rule, and then there's going to be people who do not agree with our information rule. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. We're not all going to agree 100% of the time. I'm going to apologize. Riggs is you could probably hear him barking in the background. I'm sure there is a package being delivered that he is just diabolically opposed to the delivery person. But there are people in our organization that does not agree with our information rule. There are people who don't like the way it's written, and that's okay. We can agree to disagree about that. This information rule, to me, was one of the biggest stumbling blocks that BASS has had in quite some time. If you're not familiar with it, they announced the schedule, I don't know, Friday of last week maybe, and they gave you until January 1st for information. Years before, once the schedule was announced, all information rules applied. You could not receive information after the schedule was announced on any lake. And that's often been a sore subject for myself because of the Alabama Bass Trail 100s. We allow Elite Series guys to fish with us. And for instance, in 2022, we had anglers register for the 2023 series. We get all the way to September. Bass releases the schedule. And for June of 2024, Smith Lake is on it. And we happen to have an Alabama Bass Trail 100 on Smith Lake in November 2023. So they paid for a tournament in June of 22 to fish in November of 2023. Bass puts out a schedule in September 2023, makes that tournament off limits that they paid for almost 16 months ago. So, and it was the same way when MLF had an event on Gunnersville that was going to be in February, and we were there in November. So we've had this same issue come up. And the problem I have with that, and I'm not telling you anything I haven't discussed with Chase Anderson, I haven't discussed with Chris Bowes. This is my problem with that part of the rule. I don't expect anybody to get preferential treatment. I'm not asking for ABT 100 anglers to get preferential treatment, but this is my problem with that rule. If they register in June of 2022 to fish a tournament in November of 2023, they sign up with a partner in 2022. They cannot change that partner. They cannot have an alternate. It is who they're going to fish the entire series with. They didn't just get that partner because of Smith Lake, if you understand what I'm saying. If we allow them to change partners throughout or allow them to have an alternate in the situation, I can get that, hey, they might get the local hammer to fish that tournament with them and learn more stuff and all that. My problem is they signed up in June of 2022, the whole time not knowing what Bass's schedule was going to be for 2024 until September. So for 16 months, they've had the same partner. They've already fished 2 tournaments with that guy this season. Now all of a sudden it's an issue, and in a month, 2 months, they can't fish that event because they're going to be in a boat with someone else. So yeah, I have a hard time with the fact that it's off limits after the schedule is announced, because as you know, we announce our ABT 100 schedule in March. So we announced it in March, they register in June, it sold out in 53 hours. Now all of a sudden, 3 months later, we have a schedule announcement and they can't fish a tournament in 2 months because of something that's going to happen in 8 months. Very frustrating as far as scheduling and all of that. Again, we're an amateur/pro trail. Their number one priority is the Elite Series. They don't care. Bass is honest. We don't care that they're fishing other stuff as long as it doesn't interfere with our rules. So that is a heartburn for me, Alabama Bass Trail Director. Bass doesn't care. I can tell you that right now. They don't care. Not when it comes to the Elite Series and the rules. They don't care. I've had that conversation with them. That is exactly what I was told. So I'm not saying anything out of point. It doesn't matter that they signed up whenever they signed up. Matters that this is the Elite schedule. This is what they go by. That's how that is. So from a standpoint of how I view that as another tournament organization, that's how I view it. From an angler's perspective, multiple times I've heard that you can't fish with anyone on your home body of water. Let's say the tournament was at Smith. Gerald couldn't fish with anybody, Trey, Fisher, Ryan, really anybody that has any time on Smith Lake. He would have to be off of that body of water with anyone else other than himself for the time the schedule is announced, let's say September the 7th to June the 15th. So I see where anglers have a problem with that, being that they can't fish, a derby with their cousin or their uncle, their brother, their dad, simply because of that rule. So I can see where guys would be a little upset about that too. But putting off till January 1st gives guys 3-4 months to gather information. I also understand this year that the EQs finished up kind of the end of October, and the guys have an additional month, somewhat 30 days, to make their decision if they're going to go from the EQs over to the Elite Series. So they had a little more time to get information because they had not qualified for the Elites yet. So kind of a gray area there that, okay, they're in the top 9 and they look like they're going to make the Elite Series, but the schedule was announced the 1st of September and they don't finish up to the end of October, and they haven't fully made their decision until November to fish the Elites. So they really have 60 days or so that they're not elite anglers. So they have that period of time that they could still get information because they're not truly an elite angler. So I don't know how Bass is handling that this year with the EQs, but I know last year I think they were given to the January 1 timeframe, all of the EQ guys, because they did not get their elite status until the end of October. So again, I'm going off of what I've been told, from what I perceive as why this decision was made. Gratefully, Bass came back, rescinded that decision, and made everything off limits on the new schedule effective immediately for the 2025 Elite Series and the Bassmaster Classic, which I think was the right thing to do. And I think if you are in the EQs, I did not read it. I hope that it affects them, but if you are in the EQs, Hopefully you're not sharing information or getting information on those lakes if you think that you could possibly make the Elite Series. So again, I don't deal in professional bass fishing, so I don't have to make those decisions. But I do see both sides of the coin on that situation, and I am glad to see that Bass came back and rectified that. I saw more negative comments on that decision than I did on the forward-facing sonar decision. So, yeah, that was pretty rough. Hey, I've made some of those decisions, and I've taken the heat for them, so I get where they're coming from. The last thing I want to talk about is MLF. I don't know if they sent a survey to their anglers. We're going to ask Jesse that when we get him on the horn here in just a little bit. But one of the things that I heard more than anything was that MLF had seen a significant drop in entry fees on co-anglers, whether that be on the invitationals. And again, I apologize for not being knowledgeable of it, but from the BFL standpoint and from the Toyota series, if they are seeing $1 million hit in entry fees on that, then they got to make a change. I can tell you if the Alabama Bass Trail took $1 million hit on entry fees, we would be done. That's how we pay our payback is entry fees. So if we happen to have that same thing, we would have to make adjustments as well. And I get that. If that's truly the reason why they had to send out the survey and decide, then I get that. However, from what I read, the Toyotas, the BFLs, and the College Series are going to be allowed to use forward-facing sonar. So I have to wonder how it makes sense to have it in those if those are the ones that are seeing the decline in entry fees. So maybe somebody will come out and answer that question. They don't have to. I mean, they don't have to give me an answer on any of it. But I'm just interested to see if that's the situation. I apologize. My phone rang and I didn't realize we were Bluetooth together. So, if it is the entry fees and that's why they made the decision they made, then, why are we allowing it in those? Doesn't matter to me. I don't fish BFLs. I don't run BFLs. It doesn't really matter. But that's the question that I was posed most of all. We have a lot of our guys that fish the BFLs, and so it was going to be extremely hard for them to take all of their equipment off of their boat one weekend, then fish the Alabama Bass Trail the next weekend. So I think that's probably where some of that came into. Is it's just not an easy deal for them to take those types of things on and off their boat for amateur trail. So I kind of think that's where it fell in line. But anyway, those are my opinions. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and how that relates to the Alabama Bass Trail in the last segment of this podcast. But right now, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to have BPT Pro, former Alabama Bass Trail Angler of the Year and Alabama Bass Trail Pro, Mr. Jesse Wiggins on the horn. So he's going to join us on video as well. So y'all stay tuned to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. We'll be back in just a minute.
It's the moment when everything is on the line and precision, power, and control make all the difference. A moment over 20 years in the making, anchored on loyalty, trust, and support that goes beyond all expectations. A relentless pursuit of perfection. All born from a revolutionary idea to help you rule the water. Power Pole.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast, and I promised you, BPT Pro Jesse Wiggins. I like to refer to him, though, as former Alabama Bass Trail angler and Angler of the Year, Jesse Wiggins. Welcome to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. Looking forard to it.
There's
nothing going on in the fishing world right now, so I don't know what we can talk about.
That's what I said. I don't know what we're going to talk about. A dove hunt, I guess, Saturday. I'm sure you probably got out and shot some dove. I think I saw pictures of Mr. River with some dove.
Oh, yeah. He was, I said, give that dove a kiss, and he just smacked that thing right on the beak. I was like, oh, my goodness, we got a sure enough redneck here.
Y'all got you a redneck.
Yeah.
Hey, what about the screwdriver that he took to school the other day?
Yes. So I picked him up from school, from his preschool. He's in pre-K at Hartselle here. And I picked him up, and he started digging in his backpack. And usually he gets a drink out or a snack or something out, or something he wanted to show me that they made that day. And he did on one of the zippers, and he pulled it out, and he's like, look what I got. And I'm like, what are you doing with that? he's like, Mommy gave it to me. I said, Mommy did not give you that. I said, you may have got it from Mommy's house. She did not give you that. And I started laughing. Oh my God, it was funny. He was so proud to have that screwdriver in his
I thought
bag.
that was so funny, but that was so Wiggins to me. And I was waiting on the follow-up video from Haley, and I really
Yeah.
need that in my life, a follow-up video from her. But her video the other day on the water with the lipstick, I love it,
Uh-huh.
love it, love it.
Yeah.
And we are going to get into a lot of bass fishing stuff. So we had some dialogue on kind of off camera, but I want to talk about, okay, so your season is over. Do you
Yep.
have any more?
Well, we have one. They have the team series event next week in
Okay.
Wisconsin. That we're going.
Okay.
Me and Matt's on the team, and we're
Okay.
going up there to it this weekend. So
Okay. Well, what are you doing right now? Like what's an everyday day for Jesse Wiggins right now?
Yeah. So trying to get my boat sold, getting my boat cleaned up, and then we dove hunted, like I said, Saturday, and a lot of just getting ready for hunting season. I got to whisper. I don't want Haley to hear say that, but no.
I have a feeling she knows by now.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she knows. But yeah, getting ready for hunting season, and then getting ready for that team series event. Hopefully to win some money in it, get a bonus here at the end of the year. So that's the plan, is try to do good in it, and then just getting ready for wintertime fishing and some deer hunting.
So do you kind of approach deer hunting as kind of just a time to reset your mind, or is it just all focused on deer hunting and you can just put bass fishing completely out of it?
Yeah, I never really get out of the bass fishing mindset. I'm always wanting to fish, on the weekends a lot of times, or if it's fishing's decent here at home. The good
Yeah.
thing about it, we don't have to go. If it's not good, I don't go now. So, but yeah, I mean, and then hunting. If I was to get a big deer on camera, then I'm not relaxed at all. So it's back to being just as stressed out trying to kill him. But no, it is fun. I do look forward to hunting every year, but
Yeah.
it's not always just peaceful. That's for sure.
Well, you kind of preempted me and said there's a lot going on in bass fishing, and I'm going to pause right now and tell everybody that if you haven't seen Jesse's video on his social media page, we're going to post it inside this clip, but you have to go watch it. I loved your take on it. I love the humor behind it. There's been so many very passionate, and I'm not taking anything about the passion away from it. So many passionate comments, some hurt feelings over it, some people that kind of are beating their chest and said, hey, we got something done. A lot of comments going on about forward-facing sonar in the bass fishing world. Big week last week. All three organizations, the three professional organizations, came out with their stance on forward-facing. And I'd like for you to talk about first the MLF stance on it and what your take on it was, and then how you see it from a fan's perspective and an angler's perspective moving forward.
Yeah. So that video, to talk about it for a second, it's complete comedy. I was just trying to bring a little bit of light to the situation. Everybody takes it so serious.
Mm-hmm.
But which I get. I mean, if you there's like you said, it's fine being passionate about it, but there's no need to be disrespectful. Like I see some people say it, and a lot of it is just they saying what somebody else said. It ain't their own view on it, and they don't. And I will say this too. Another little nugget is, if you've never used it, and if you've never actually seen it work in a boat and use it and tried to catch bass with it, you do not deserve to comment on it. It's kind of like the president. If you didn't vote, you don't get to gripe about the president. That's
Right.
kind of the way I see it. So, like, the guys that start talking about it, I'll see a comment and somebody's like, have you used it? And he's like, no, I'll never use it. I'm like, well, you don't even know what you're talking about. Like, so you got to at least know a little bit, what it is, because it ain't the end all be all. I'll say that right now. But yeah, so MLF come out with their ruling on it, and it's going to be the Bass Pro Tour. It's going to be one period each day. And overall, I think the anglers are pretty happy with it. We had an angler call, and I mean, nobody was really in disagreement with it. There were some guys obviously wanted it all day, and some guys that didn't want it at all. But I think it was a happy medium. Just me personally, this is just my view on it, not the way I think it should be, but just how I look at it is, I'm happy there's some kind of restrictions on it, because I want to, go to the bank and throw a worm in the spring, or go throw a buzzbait in the fall. And some lakes you could still do that in our format and be okay, but a lot of lakes, you don't have. If you decide to do that, you don't have a chance to win.
Right.
So it's just, like I was talking about earlier, I got enough experience of before forward facing that I still like, going to the bank and doing some of that stuff. But if that deal's going down on the bank. But I think it's gonna be fun, with our format and our score tracker, and being able to see everybody's name on the score tracker. We're gonna have indicators, on there. Like, so you get to use it one period, so it'll be, if you haven't used it yet, there's an indicator. If you've already used it, there's an indicator, and then if you're using it, there's an indicator. So you'll know at all times which angler's using it, which angler's not. So there's not going to be much confusion with it, as long as you pull up Score Tracker and look at it. And I think it'll add to it. You got a guy that may be in fourth place that hasn't used his active target yet or used forward facing yet, and the guy in first or second's already used it. So there's going to be a storyline there that the guy in fourth may could come back that last period, if it's on a lake where forward facing's playing. So I think it's going to adds to the Score Tracker. At first I was a hater of it. Like, I thought that was going to be too confusing for everybody. But, having the Score Tracker, looking back or looking at it now, I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be cool to watch. And I mean, I think I would enjoy watching it. And I've said many times, I watch as much fishing as anybody does, all leagues, all live. Like, I watch fishing, and I think it would be something I really like to follow. So I'm looking forward to that. And as far as like transducers and all that, they limited to 2 transducers. We can have one forward facing and one 360, 2 360s, or one 360 and one forward facing. So it's just 2, and a 360 counts as the forward facing with MLF. So I think that's going to be good too. A lot of people are talking about an arms race with the reason we limited that, and I'll be honest, it's just because us anglers didn't want to have to put all that crap on our boat. That's why my voting or my thought process was behind it. We sell our boat every year at the end of the year, and I don't want somebody to have to pay for all that junk that you have to put on a boat every year to feel like you can hang. So we didn't limit a screen or nothing like Bass did, but we did have a deal where you can't have a raised platform of graphs on the front of the boat while you're on plane. So you can have the mounts that lift, but you have to make sure you put them down when you take off, or you get a penalty for that as well. So, and I think that's good too, because there's mounts that stick up way too high. I mean, there's actually a law, you can't have a sit down seat in the front. You have to have either a pole or take the seat down, when you get on plane. So that makes a lot of sense. Putting that into play, and those lift up mounts are cool. I don't have one, but they are cool. So I'm glad people are, guys are still going to use them, but they just got to make sure they drop them. And like I said, no screen restriction, but just the transducer restriction, and which is, I think all anglers were happy with it. And I believe, and we had our group call, and it was one of the more peaceful group crawls we've ever had. I think everybody was pretty happy with our ruling in our league, and it's going to be fun, with the Score Tracker and all that. It's going to be a fun time for sure, I think.
Well, and you and I talked off air about the fact that, it can be a storyline either way. Either the guy in fourth place comes back and wins, or he waited and used it too late and was unable, let the deficit get too far, or whatever that is. So there is a possibility that forward-facing sonar is not going to be you turn it on and magically that you win. But we also talked about what we like to watch on fishing. I love to watch the time that fish are on bed. I love to watch bed fishing. I love when the power poles go down and guys are really concentrated on those beds. It may not be the most exciting form of fishing as throwing a spinner bait or something, or a frog across lily pads and seeing it blow up. But to me, that's an exciting thing to watch. And you said that you actually like watching forward-facing sonar fishing.
Yes. If that is the deal for that lake, I love, like I was talking about, I love watching whatever is the best way to catch them on that lake. That's what I want to see, because if I'm able to use forward-facing, which pretty much every tournament organization can, obviously, besides the NPFL, you want to watch the best way to catch them on that lake. So I look at it as a tournament fisherman's perspective. Now, this is just me watching. I just said, like, me fishing, I don't want to use it every tournament if I didn't have to, but getting to watch, I want to see how those big ones get caught, whether, like Fisher and Ryan catching 28 pounds on Gunner's World the first hour or something like that. Like, that's what I want to see happen, because I'm going there, if, in my mindset, I get to use forward facing, I can do that. So that's how I look at that. And, a lot of people don't realize, they want to go back to old school fishing, but we didn't have live cameras a lot of times when all that frog fishing was going down. They didn't realize that was a highlight show, we were getting to watch. We didn't watch 8 hours of a dude getting 3 bites. He got 3 bites on a frog and caught 2 on a worm, in between, had a good limit. Watching that live is not that fun, watching 3 blow-ups all day. Now, if you got to watch the highlight, it's different. So, a lot of people have to realize what they're griping against too, because it ain't the same as it was. And, obviously, even the frog fishing ain't as good as it was. And so having to watch that for 8 hours is not gonna be entertaining, unless it's just this crazy bite, which it hardly ever is. We
Well,
never get to experience that. So
that was the next question I was going to lead into. You go from being able to see 28 pounds caught on Lake Guntersville, because we stayed with Ryan and Fisher a good bit, and we stayed with Ben Webb and Justin Bussey. They were the Angler of the Year leaders, and we were able to watch them, and they were fishing jigs, still doing forward facing, but doing a totally different setup than what Ryan and Fisher were doing. And you see 26, 25, 26, 27 pounds weighed in. What happens when, okay, we go no forward facing sonar and the weights go from what was 22 pounds a day to that 15, 16 pound a day? Is that going to be, are people going to get really excited about watching live on that if they're
Yep.
6 bites a day?
Exactly. And that's and another thing, exactly what you just said, exact to a T. And then another thing people don't think about, like at Toledo Bend this year, Bass and MLF went to Toledo Bend, in the wintertime. Toledo Bend is not going to want to pay MLF or Bass to come out there to watch us catch 13 pounds on the bank, which what would have happened? They want to see 29 pounds get weighed in, or 28, all these 8-pounders. Like I caught like the second biggest bass I've ever caught in a tournament out there. Like, that would have never happened without forward facing. So what's that going to do to the lakes, where people are going to think these lakes ain't no good anymore, and knowing if you don't have forward facing. So I think the leagues have to think about that as well, which I'm sure they have, but that's going to be a huge player for wintertime tournaments as well. But it's just something, it's a fluid deal. Like both leagues pretty much said, it's a fluid situation, the rulings. And you can't blame them. They want to make, have views, have people watch, and put a product out there that's, worth watching. But that's just something you have to keep in mind. Is we used to watch a highlight show of frog fishing. We wasn't watching 8 hours of it. So a lot of the casual viewers, I don't think they really understand how boring it is out there for a long time.
Well, to that statement right there, I want to let everybody know we put an average of 10 cameras on the water along with our 3 roaming cameras. So we have 13 cameras out on the water to put together a 27.5-minute TV show.
Yep.
So, and
it's
they're
not
fishing
easy, I'm sure.
8 to 10 hours, and it's not easy. And there's a lot of people that'll bring you back their camera footage, and they're like, well, we had 5 fish for 9.5 pounds. Good luck getting some, good footage off of that. So you have to understand that. And you brought up a very good point, and I try to keep the tourism side out of this, but like Toledo Bend, their goal is to show that lake at its very best potential.
Yep.
Is 12 to 16 pounds its best potential? And are people going to come from Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, wherever, to come and stay in their hotels, buy gas in their gas stations, and pay to go to dinner in their restaurants to come fish for 16 pounds?
Yep.
We can do that on any lake, Alabama. So that's something that a tourism organization, before they stroke a check, and I have zero idea what Bass or MLF charges.
Right. I
know what the Alabama Bass Trail charges. I know that those cities work hard for that money, and when they invested in a TV show, basically is what they're investing in, is a TV show and anglers coming, because the amount of money that you guys bring to the town is important, but the amount of money that comes in after you're there.
Yes.
I can remember when we were at Guntersville, I believe it was in 2010, the elites were on Guntersville, and I remember Todd Faircloth sitting down in the bottom of the boat and us being like, oh, well, he must have boat trouble. And he goes, no, I have 27 pounds. I'm just sitting here protecting my spot. And getting back to the weigh-in, and it seems like they might have had 30 pounds. And I remember Gerald coming up and said, I caught him. And I said, what'd you catch? He goes, I got about 25. I said, well, Todd Faircloth just weighed in 27. And just the defeat across his face, because that was all going on. By the way, that was before forward-facing sonar, too.
Right.
I just want to highlight that, 2010. But what happened from Thursday to Friday, and the amount of boat traffic that was there on Friday, that's what the hotels and that's what the tourism organizations are looking for, is that person that's going to drive from Tennessee down to Smith Lake. when they see those largemouth schooling, or we're able to show that
Yeah.
on TV. So that's what those organizations are looking for. So that's a very interesting point that I wasn't going to bring up. So I'm glad that you brought it up. Are you a little bit worried about what this sets as far as a precedent in our sport, as far as limiting or banning? The last thing I can remember being banned was A-rigs. So are you a little bit worried about that?
Yeah, I've said that too. Like, I just don't want to just be the somebody that just bans something just because without any facts behind it. And there's
Right.
the only facts is, and we need to bring this up too, and which is another point, is the tackle sales. And I know tackle sales are down. You know, everybody's buying minnows and spinning rods, and so tackle sales are down. So that's another, like I said, we know why these leagues took so long to make decisions is because of all these factors you have to factor in, and tackle sales being low is definitely one of them. You know, hard bait sales, crankbaits, all that. So, yeah, I mean, that's just another facet you have to throw into, you have to look at. But yeah, as far as banning, I never wanted to ban something like even A-rig. I didn't want to ban it, you know, because I like going out and catching fish, and it was just a new technique, you know, and it was fun. Which now it's not even like 2 or 3 months out of the year, you know, somebody may win with it, but it's nothing now. But then it was something new, and everybody was throwing it. And I mean, I honestly believe, this is just my personal opinion, and I've said this before. If Strike King would have had the first umbrella rig, it would not have been banned. You know what I mean? Or Strike King or Berkeley or somebody like that, it wouldn't have been banned at the top levels. I 100% believe that. But you know, it being somebody making them out of their garage, they banned it. You know, so that part of it, I look at, it kind of, you know, pisses me off that they just banned it before they knew any kind of facts behind it. But and it's the same way with forward facing. Like, we don't know. People are hollering conservation, conservation. If catch and release works, why are you worried about conservation? That's my thing with bass fishing is bass can't, or bass or anybody that, you know, keeps them or weighs them in. If you're saying catch and release works, then it don't hurt to catch them. That's how I look at it. If you're going to say catch and release works, you can't say that catching them is going to hurt.
Right.
If you're going to look into it deeper and say, okay, catch and release don't work as good as we thought, then okay, maybe you have a leg to stand on as saying don't catch them. But you're in a 5-fish tournament, and I've made this point before too with forward facing. You're in a 5-fish tournament. Why does it matter if you catch 5 out of 30 foot instead of 5 from 5 foot? It's still 5 fish, still 5 bass. You tell me the 30-foot fish lives matter more than the 5-foot, you know, fish? That's another argument. I just don't understand the conservation argument. And that's what I said from the beginning. Just give me a fact to ban it on instead of just your feelings about it. And I mean, like I said, the tackle sales going down, that's a fact that is happening, and that's a reason to look into it. And, you know, and I think I was talking to Gerald about this, like once the fishing endemic sponsors, like once times gets tough, all the non-endemics are, they gone from the fishing industry. But the endemics are still here. Well, if the endemics don't have a reason to sponsor your league because they're not selling any, you know, crankbaits or whatever it may be, then we have problems. If they both leave, then you do have problems. So that's another reason I looked into it, you know, or looked at it as a proponent for limiting it, or, you know, having some events without it or whatever it may be. But but like, to answer the initial question is, I do not want to ban something just off feelings, off the first couple years of it or whatever. And like I said, I mean, or like I've said before, it's been out since the good version of it's been out since 2017, 2018. And it wasn't until guys started mastering it until they wanted it banned. It wasn't just because, so I just ain't going to get behind banning something just because somebody's good at it and other people ain't. But like I said, give me some facts behind stuff before you ban it.
Well, you know, we've seen restrictions in hunting. You know, we've seen that now that you have to report your kills and things like that, and you have a limited season, very similar to the snapper season in the Gulf Coast. So you have things like that that are done for conservation. I personally, from looking at the Alabama Bass Trail numbers this year across the board, we did not see a downturn in bass fishing as far as weights, as far as catch rates, as far as limits caught and things like that. I can't come out and say based on the Alabama Bass Trail stuff. And we look at that very closely. I did talk with one of our partners, and that's in my next segment, but I'll go ahead and talk about it here. We talked to one of our partners, Rapala, and they sent to me that they are down 13% in hard bait sales. Most people would look at that and go, oh, well, that's not much. It's about $4 million in hard bait sales. There's only so many years you can take a hit like that. So, they said we are not against forward-facing sonar. We are hoping that we see a resurgence in hard baits, and that maybe the fishing doesn't always curtail to live scope. Maybe there are different, more traditional ways of catching bass that we see a resurgence in the hard baits. But they did say they are not against forward-facing sonar. As two guys on your trail that are very good with it would be Dustin Cannell and Jacob Wheeler, of course, repping that Crush City stuff. So they kind of had a backup plan when it came to forward-facing sonar, and we've seen that too. So I do hate to see that part of it. They've been a very good partner of ours, as well as some other. We had Strike King for some time with their lures as well. So I do see that, and that's one of the things. I didn't want to paint this with just some kind of a small stroke and what the anglers thought about it, because it is a very different thing for our partners, our bait companies and rod and reel companies and all of that. It is far reaching. It's not just about the reservoir or just about those big floppy checks that you hold up when you win. So,
right. Yeah. And as far as I think you can't just blame it just on forward facing. The economy too has sales down too, and rods, reels, maybe not bait specifically, but boat industry, all that has to do a lot with the economy. I mean, nobody wants to go out and spend $300 extra on a rod now, so it's it trickles down, no doubt. But 100% it does have something to do with forward facing, but I don't think the whole blame is on it.
Agreed.
But it does have have some blame, but not the whole thing. But that's another thing too, though, is if you think about it, a fisherman, he wants to go catch fish somebody just going out fun fishing. If they see us throwing hard baits and we're only, like we talked about earlier, if we're only catching 13 pounds, but another group goes with a minnows and catch 27, well, they're still not going to buy hard baits if you can catch 27 on a minnow. You know what I mean? So I don't know that it's going to help that part of it. Now it will help. It won't hurt, obviously, if they see some pros catching them on a crankbait, whatever in March. But deep down, they still know that 27 pounds is out behind them, not on the bank. So that's why I don't really know if it's going to help a lot, but it's definitely not going to hurt.
Right. I agree. Looking forward to 2025, is there a date or a lake you have circled on your schedule?
Nothing really crazy. The invitationals are coming to Smith, obviously. I mean, I live pretty close to Smith, so I'll definitely try to get in on that.
I do too now.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep, Coleman. Yep.
Yeah,
so
I do too now.
I'm looking forward to that one. Probably have to go battle against Jordan again on that one. So I think he's going to fish the invitationals again. Probably with him coming to Smith. I think he'll probably fish them again. So looking forward to that one for sure. And there's a couple on there that I haven't been to. Potomac River, a couple. I've been there once, but I'm looking forward to several of them. But it's going to be. I'm just ready to get the year started again, obviously, and get to catching some fish.
I understand. Well, what would be your comment to someone who is on the fence about buying a forward-facing unit? Any advice to them?
I had a guy message me a couple nights ago. He's like, I really want your honest opinion on it. I said, I would buy in a freaking heartbeat. It is the most fun you can have, when that deal's going down. Now, it gets frustrating when they're not biting it, obviously, but man, buy it. If you're a fisherman, save up money or cut back on something else, get you one. People are talking about, it's $30,000. You need $3,000 at the. You do want a 12-inch screen if you're going to be serious about it, and to perform. I feel like the best with it, a 10 to 12-inch screen is definitely needed, because I've tried it on a 9 and it's not as easy. But if you can find a 12-inch, I mean, I use Lowrance HDS 12 Pro or Live, and you can get an active target too for around $2,000, and find a used unit, and with right around $3,000, you're going to be ready to go, and you can take it out like on Smith Lake right now. You can take it out, and you fish down the bank. You may get 3 or 4 bites in an hour, and you take that active target out on Smith right now and get out off the bank, and you can catch 20 in an hour. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and tell somebody it's not fun. It is really fun when they're biting. Now, it's really frustrating when you can see them and they don't bite. So get ready to be frustrated as well.
Yeah.
But, man, it's still tricking them, changing baits, changing sizes, changing size of the jig head, changing the way you work the bait. You don't just throw it out there and they jump in the live well like the comments say.
Thank you for
It's not
saying
the
that,
case.
because I think everybody thinks you could just go put a swim bait on and they're automatically going to
Yes.
bite it, no matter where you are in the water column, no matter what color
Yeah.
you put on. And it's not. That's where the 25 years of fishing and the 25 years of knowledge that people have wrapped up, I think that's where it kicks in, whether it's your
Yep.
cadence with how you're working
Yep.
your lure or whatever. I think that's where that intuition and that knowledge and that just years and years and years of work out on the water comes in right there.
Yeah. And I don't know if we were recording earlier when I said it, but if you've never had a forward facing sonar, or if you've never used it and run the trolling motor and tried to get those fish to bite, you do not get to comment on it, on how good it or bad it is. It's like I said about the president. If you didn't vote, you don't get to gripe about the president. So it's the same deal with forward facing. If you've not used it and been out there when they're not biting it, or biting every time you throw it, which is they rarely bite it every time you throw it. Like I was talking about Smith, I say you can catch 20, but you threw it at 120 to get those 20 to bite. So it's not just throw it out there and reel it in. And I see comments like that, and I'm like, man, you making yourself look silly if because you have no idea what you're talking about. But now, besides some smallmouth lakes, now they might bite. Most of them bite it, but not down here. That's for dang sure.
I think we're just in a different area. You go up there to that smallmouth area, where Brent was guiding all summer and all that.
Yeah.
That is, and people want to complain about how Alabama doesn't have that. They don't allow you to fish up there 12 months a year.
And half the other time it's froze over. So yeah, I mean, they don't get the pressure, and they're definitely a little bit smarter. But I promise you, they ain't nowhere near as smart as these spotted bass down here are. I promise. I don't care what people want to say. Oh, it's not as good. I'm like, it's a million times better than anywhere I've ever been. So it's still good.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, that place, 6 months, like you said, they don't get fished for, and so it's easier to catch them, obviously, which I'm fine with. It's been easy to catch.
Yeah, that's got to be a lot more fun than maybe trying to chase down some spotted bass, which you've got it pretty dialed in there at Smith. I'll say trying to chase down fish a whaler, which it's been a lot better the last couple of years. We're looking forward to going there for the last ABT 100 of the year. This year, I'm looking forward to that event, but we've got Lay up next. So got a little bit of work to do there for the championship, then on to Lay. But, well, I know you've probably got some deer fields to plant and all the things. And I think I heard something about you getting a tractor.
Yeah, I did. I bought some land and got a tractor. Haley was very supportive of it. She was begging me to buy it.
I can tell she was very supportive of it.
But no, we did. I've wanted a tractor since I was riding my grandpa at 5 years old. So me and Jordan and Jerry, I didn't buy it. We split it. Me and my two brothers just went in together and bought it. So we got us a good tractor now. So I'm pretty excited about that too. Yep.
Well, good. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be with us. And I'm going to continue to refer to you as former Alabama Bass Trail Angler of the Year, Jesse Wiggins. And now
Sounds
he
good.
fishes the Bass Pro Tour. Thank you for being with us, Jesse.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, there he is, Jesse Wiggins, former Alabama Bass Trail Angler of the Year, and now BPT Pro out on the MLF BPT Tour. So we'll be back in just a minute. You're listening to the Alabama Bass Trail podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. Stay tuned, and we'll talk all things Alabama Bass Trail, forward-facing sonar, and what 2025 looks like. Y'all stay tuned.
Howdy. You may not be able to tell it now, but once upon a time in my life, I was down so low a mosquito wouldn't bite me. I lost my job, I lost my four-wheel drive, and I almost got kicked out of my bass club. And it was all due to one thing: forward-facing sonar. That's all my life was scoping. And I was on that last lap that was about to weigh me on into hell, but I got lucky. I got into rehab down there at Smith Lake, Alabama, and they got me off of it. And forward-facing sonar is no longer part of my life. Now, I'll use 2D. I'll use some 2D sonar now. When, I get out there and, you want to catch some and you see some under the boat, I will use that 2D. But I will not use forward-facing sonar. I just won't do it. Now I'll still throw a jig head minnow now. Now I'll still throw a minnow when, I know we're somewhere out on a point and they just ain't biting. I'll still throw that minnow, but I will not use forward-facing sonar. I just won't do it. Now I will put it in scout mode every now and then. They get to spawning, and I get it in scout mode. I ain't caught nothing. I ain't seen them with my eyes. I'll put it in scout mode. I like to come upside their head with that scout mode. Now, when they get to spawning up on the seawall, I see them up there on scout mode. Now, I will come upside their head, but I will not use forward-facing sonar. That's it. I just will not do it. Unless it's my birthday. Now I will, sometimes you just got to treat yourself on your birthday. So, I will pull out the forward-facing sonar on my birthday, but that's it. I just won't do it. That's it. That's the only other time, But, now I will use 360. Now, you get on some brim beds, you want to see the brim beds out in front of you, you turn on that 360. Now I will not put it on forward-facing sonar. Especially in a tournament. Now, I won't do it in a tournament, unless, it's lines in and we need to catch some fish. Now, I will use it, but that's it. I will not use it if I'm fun fishing. Well, unless, I will use it if I ain't catching anything. And I spend all my money and wanted to come down here and catch a few fish. I will turn it on, when I'm fun fishing. But that's it. I will not use forward-facing sonar any other time, especially if I was, the last hour of a tournament. I needed to catch a few more. I will turn it on, but other than that, forward-facing sonar is no longer part of my life.
I've been with Jax for 25 years. Hey! And I've seen my share of game days here in Tuscaloosa, and nothing brings us together like football and good food. Good luck, y'all. We're firing up the grill with our new Steakhouse Bacon Burger and Steakhouse Patty Melt. 2 all-beef patties, mushrooms, onions, melted Swiss, and our signature steak sauce. Whichever way you go, you're gonna win. Score the new Steakhouse Bacon Burger or Steakhouse Patty Melt from Jax. I'm Taylor Kitchens, and I'm all about the South.
Welcome back to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast presented by Phoenix Boats. Wow, great interview with Jesse. Always love having him on. He's always going to give you exactly what's on his mind. He's not very scripted, and I like that. I'm kind of that way myself. So very excited to have him on. Wish him all the best in his deer hunting and dove hunting that's left to go, and then getting into the 2025 season. Now on to something that I'm a little more familiar with, which would be the Alabama Bass Trail. I'm just going to be frank and honest with you. I've had lots of conversations with pros. I've had lots of conversations with Alabama Bass Trail anglers. I've had conversations with our partners. I've had conversations with our fans. I've had conversations with conservation and trying to just kind of look at this subject all the way around. And I've had a lot of you call that are ordering your boats for next season, want to know what we're going to do. And this is kind of how I feel about it. For the first 11 years of the Alabama Bass Trail, we've asked our anglers, which is over 10,000 of y'all that have signed up with us, to support our partners and to be loyal to our partners. And luckily, we haven't seen a lot of partners leave and a lot of come and go, a lot more get on board with us than leave us. We have had some. And a lot of that is because they do cut their marketing dollars. As Jesse alluded to, you see a lot of those companies that are seeing decreases in their bait sales or their rods, and they're having to cut back on their dollars. And so we have seen some of that. We've been very lucky to be insulated from a lot of that. But we have asked you to be loyal to our partners. I will say that without them, we couldn't do what we do. We pay out over 108% each year on our tournament trail, and there's no possible way we can do that without their support. When we look back on it and we look at the field with Phoenix Boats, going from 22 boats on year one with the Alabama Bass Trail to over half the field being in Phoenix Boats now, we know that you've done that. You've been loyal. You've heard the call and you've heeded the call, and you've been loyal to our partners. Garmin Electronics came on in 2016. We had 8 units in 2016. This year we had 228 teams register with the Garmin units in the regular Alabama Bass Trail. You've done what we've asked. You've been loyal, and we are loyal. we did take time and speak with Rapala. I mentioned that during the conversation with Jesse. They are down 13% in reduction of hard bait sales. That is something we have to look at from a standpoint of how we schedule our tournaments, how we market their products, and how we can be creative and using those, and how you guys can be creative in using those. So we are like Rapala. We hope that hard baits make a comeback. I think that seeing a spinnerbait bite is extremely exciting, as well as seeing a popar bite. I think that's a fun bite to watch. I do think a buzzbait is a lot of fun. So watching those type of, I actually like a buzzbait bite. When I fished back several years ago before starting the Alabama Bass Trail, that was one of my favorite baits to throw. I think that is something that fish will get used to, the swim baits and different things. But I do hope that we see a resurgence in hard baits, or that we can see the economy pick up to where people are investing in those more expensive type baits. I remember looking for a DT7, I believe, back when I fished the FLW tour on Lake Gunnersville in 2004. No, it wasn't 14. Let's see. Let me think. I guess it was 2008. I'm trying to remember when I fished. It was on Gunnersville. My first day, I got drawn out with Greg Pugh. The second day, I got drawn out with Tim Johnson, who was a plumber from Georgia. I believe it was 2008. I believe that's right. And it was a Lucky Craft bait. And at the time, Gerald was sponsored by Lucky Craft. And I remember going to his house and him telling me to take whatever I wanted to out of that room. He had plenty, whatever, and I didn't. But I remember that bait being about $15.99. And I ended up buying 3 of them. And we get to our very first spot in Jones Creek that morning. And it took me about 45 minutes to get my glove unwrapped from the hooks that were in my baits as we were in the M&M boat at the time. And I was holding on for dear life. So I think it was like a, 50-mile run from where we blasted off to where Jones Creek was. So by the time that I could actually get my glove out of my hooks and start fishing, I had 3 fish right away on that particular bait. So one of my fondest days of being on the lake came with a Lucky Craft bait. And I'll have to go back and look. I think it was the spring crawl color, but totally different from what Greg was throwing. He was throwing a royal shad. I think that's right. I'll have to go back and look at that. I actually wrote all that down in one of my journals that I did. But some of the best bites that I've personally had on in a tournament has been on hard plastics. And so I enjoy that. I don't enjoy it anymore because I don't ever go fishing anymore. But those were some of the best memories that I had in tournament fishing was on hard plastic. So I do hope that we see a resurgence in those. So I do want to conclude this podcast, but I want to mention a couple things that are on their way. If you have been paying attention, we just had our last original episode on Lake Gunnersville this past weekend. It was a great show in Valley Sports Southeast. You can also see those on WAFF. But if you've missed a tournament or you've missed part of the season, you can always check those out on YouTube at Alabama Bass Trail TV. Go under videos and you can check those out. Also, any of the podcasts that you might have missed or any of the recap videos that are there. So please make sure you tune in and see those. And your Academy Sports and Outdoors Winners Tackle Box recap from the winners of each tournament can be found there as well. We are 38 days away from the Alabama Bass Trail Championship on Lake, a 5-time Bassmaster Classic host lake. Going to be fun to be down there in the fall. I don't know that we've ever been down there maybe one time in November. We had an ABT Open down there. We had 229 boats. I believe Randall Hamilton and Justin Mott won that event. So they may be a team to watch at Lake here in just a few days. We are 53 days away from the Alabama Bass Trail 100 on Wheeler Lake. That's going to be a fun one. Not my home lake anymore, but looking forward to being there. And then guess what? It all starts again. We start getting ready for the 2025 season. Balances on the Alabama Bass Trail 100 are due on December the 1st, 2024. We will be sending out your team IDs and pins in about a month ahead of time, around November 1st, for you to make those payments. And then right around December 20th is when Alabama Bass Trail payments are due. So no rest for the weary, no stopping this train. We are riding right on through. So just make sure that you are aware of those dates. December 1st, Alabama Bass Trail 100 payments are due. December 20th, Alabama Bass Trail payments are due. And I'm not going to lie, that is on purpose. Every year during the holidays, I'm inundated with people making their payments, not having their PIN numbers, their team IDs. And that is the one time that I have to spend with my family and have multiple occasions to have my kids and my parents and all of that here. And in the past 11 years, I've not been able to enjoy that because we've been making payments through January. So we are going to make all payments by December the 20th, have everything put to bed by the time the holidays roll around. And I will say that is 100% the reason why we moved that up. Plus, we are actually fishing the first week in February instead of the third and fourth week. So as you can hear, my phone is over there ringing. I apologize for that. Whoever it is must need me because they've called 3 times in a row. So I'll answer that in just a little bit. But I do want to thank you for your patience for not being on air for the last 2 weeks. I do hope we will see you in the great state of Alabama, out on the water, or in one of our local tackle stores. But until then, I hope that you have a blessed day, and God bless. Good fishing. And as Big Daddy would always say, get outdoors.
Thanks for listening to the Alabama Bass Trail Podcast. To learn more about the Alabama Bass Trail, make sure and visit alabamabasstrail.org.